After another close victory against an inferior opponent, how are we supposed to feel about the Philadelphia Eagles now that they are 11-4, a 33-25 win over the New York Giants? The post-game show for Locked On Eagles coming up next.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. We are recapping an Eagles win for the first time in a month. 33-25, the final score over the New York Giants. The Eagles now 11-4, back in first place in the NFC East, but again, it wasn't easy for this team. It looked easy for a while. They were controlling the game, much like they have, you look at last week against the Seattle Seahawks, and then they just, kind of did what they do this year, and a lot of self-inflicted wounds on both sides of the ball, let the Giants back in, but Keely Ringo did seal the victory with an interception at the end. I think it's really hard to judge how I feel about this team right now after this win, because I think they got back to doing a lot of the great things that make them elite, right? I think Jalen Hurts looked really good in this football game. They were very well balanced on offense. The defense was opportunistic on the second and third level. I thought special teams was really good. They dominated early on in this football game, but the issues just continue to be a problem, and they're not fixed. And so it's just a very Jekyll and Hyde football team right now.
I think that's just what the NFL is right now with every team, to be honest with you, because for the first time all season, the Eagles actually controlled their own destiny and took advantage of it, where in the past games against Dallas and San Francisco, they kind of spilled the milk on the ground, and we were all crying about it for a couple weeks. But then look at what has happened since that Dallas game. They're 0-2. San Francisco drops a game right after you pick up that win.
Right.
And now you have a realistic chance and a path back to the number one seed, that if you can continue to pick up wins, because quite frankly, Lou, after that Seattle game, it's like you just need to add another win in the win column now. And with the landscape of the NFC and the landscape of the NFL as a whole, Lou, who's to say that this Eagles team in the month of January, when it flips to the playoffs, those elite things that they do, can they be better at those elite things than the other teams? And can their weaknesses be covered up enough to the point where they can go and win? And I think that's what we saw yesterday, that even though there were some self-inflicted wounds, when the playmakers are elite and the defense even has a semblance of being able to stop another team, this football team can go and put up 33 points on any given Sunday, and can put together some plays like the 3rd and 20 play in the fourth quarter when the Giants put it within 2 points. And Jalen Hurts says, I'm just better than the other team. I'm going to find A.J. Brown, who's also better than anybody on the other team, and we're just going to make elite plays, because the coaching on offense has let you down. The personnel on defense has let you down. But the defensive coach has elevated that personnel, where in the other side of the ball, the offensive coach is just continuing to put bullet holes in the bottom of your boat and hoping
and I don't
to
think that's
sink
going to change. And, that's kind of, you put it perfectly. That's exactly where my mind is regarding this football team. They are not playing to the standard of 2022. They're not playing to the standard
100%.
even of what they were at 10-1. I think a lot of things were working better for them then than it even is right now after that win. So in that way, are they the dominant force that you can guarantee is going to make the NFC Championship and the Super Bowl like we thought heading into the year, where it should be an expectation right now with this team? No, not at all. But you put it perfectly. In the 2023 NFL season, that might not be a requirement to be seen as a Super Bowl contender, because everybody looks beatable. As you mentioned, Brock Purdy throws 3 interceptions against the Baltimore Ravens. Every time we say this might be a different year for the Dallas Cowboys, they lose to really good teams. They've lost now to the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins.
Said that.
No, not us specifically, but the national media pundits. The narrative was this year just feels different for Dallas. They're losing football games. The Kansas City Chiefs, who beat you in the Super Bowl, look extremely vulnerable. They just lost to the Raiders and are 9-6 now. The Buffalo Bills have had their ups and downs this year. Baltimore has too. So yeah, this year it might be okay to just have an elite quarterback get hot at the right time. You have elite personnel on offense. And if you can get the coaches to elevate that defense a little bit, you're going to at least have a shot. So, yeah, I think that's the good thing is you saw just get Jalen Hurts right. And I think yesterday was a big step in that direction. I thought he looked very poised in the pocket, Gino, against the blitz, over 200 passing yards. I thought you look at his escapability. That was the most healthy he's looked from a mobility standpoint all year long. So I don't want to be too simplistic, but I'm starting to just come to terms and accept who this team is and just really hope the elite players, the elite things that you do kind of cover up those holes, because I don't think you're going to fix most of those issues this year.
I continue to use the Formula One analogy with this offense and this team, and Jalen Hurts right now is, let's just say, the Lewis Hamilton equivalent of being able to drive a very bad race car. And Toto Wolff, who's the team principal for Mercedes, is quite literally Brian Johnson, where they're just making bad decision after bad decision, and these guys have to drive their way out of it. And right. I think that's what we were trying to figure out in that little downswing there is it just a bad car overall, or is just the driver in a little bit of a tailspin here? And I think it was Jalen Hurts wasn't performing to that level that we all know he can, and this team goes how Jalen Hurts goes. And they almost let that team back into it with that pick six, but what does Jalen Hurts do? He bounces back. They have finally a 4-minute drive at the end of the game where they're able to put a team to bed. They're able to have multiple drives that are prolonged and just choke the clock down. They still have to continue to be better in the red zone, in my opinion. But if Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, DeVonta Smith, Dallas Goedert, and DeAndre Swift are just better than the other guys on the other side of the ball, they're going to have to win in spite of Brian Johnson's lack of identity, lack of scheme. Same with Nick Sirianni. That's on him too. But that's what we have to accept at this current point in time. And I know the guys are frustrated. You could see it with DeVonta Smith. And
A.J. Brown didn't even talk to the media. He said, I have nothing nice to say.
He said, I was raised, if you have nothing nice to say, you don't say it at all. And it's clear there are frustrations. But if those guys just make their plays at the end of the day, let frustrations be frustrations, and you'll figure it out in this offseason. Because right now, you still have 2 more games to control your own destiny against a team where I think we all want to kind of kick the crap out of JG on the other side of the ball. And then you have to play this Giants team again. But you control your own destiny. If San Fran slips up, you have a chance at the 1 seed. If Detroit or Dallas slips up, or if these teams continue to win, you have to continue to win as well to keep pace with them. So right now, it is just getting those dubs. Because like you said, a team like Kansas City can go out there and lose to the Raiders. Who's to say if the Eagles get that 1 seed, and then, heck, San Francisco has an off day, and then all of a sudden, they lose to Seattle in the 3rd time they play them, or the Rams. That could happen at any given day in this league.
And look, it shouldn't be a requirement for Jalen Hurts, for DeVonta Smith, A.J. Brown, and the personnel in this offense to have to carry as much as they're going to need to. But that's just the reality of the situation, Gino, because I think there are some issues that they can fix. For instance, the one thing that's killing this football team, and I think a lot of it's on the personnel, are the self-inflicted wounds, the mistakes with penalties and turnovers, right? Mm-hmm. Over the last 5 games, they have 9 turnovers, which is 6th most in the NFL. They only have 3 forced turnovers on the other side of the ball, which is tied for the 2nd least in the league. So I think that's something the players can fix. I trust the players to fix that issue. And even you can look at too, on the other side of the football, the pass rush. The pass rush has been non-existent. Even yesterday, Shaq Leonard's the only guy with a sack. With all the elite talent they have, though, I would expect eventually they'll bounce back, because there's no reason for them to be this inconsistent right now at getting to the quarterback. So some of those issues, I do believe they can get hot at the right time in the postseason. But when it comes to issues that have a lot to do with coaching, like you mentioned, red zone offense, you look at as well, plays over the middle of the field, pre-snap motion, making it easier for this offense, that I've kind of lost faith that that's going to happen this year. And it's more, okay, we just need our elite guys to be great and overcompensate for that. And as frustrated as they are, that's what they're going to have to do this year.
And the 2 things I believe in are the passing offense with the guys you have multiple times this season have won you football games.
Absolutely.
Same with the defensive line. Multiple times have they won you football games. The rest of it, you can't guarantee just about anything. And you can't guarantee anything in this league, but we've seen more examples than the other things. Like the run game hasn't won you many games this year. Taking away the run, you're starting to get back to that, but it hasn't won you a ton of games this year. Same with taking away the pass. But if you hit the quarterback and your quarterback's able to stay upright and deliver the ball on time, it's basic football, Lou. Like we overcomplicate it, but when the Eagles make mistakes, they turn the ball over and give a bad offense like the Giants an opportunity right after halftime to get that ball within their own red zone and let teams back into it. Any team that you are playing can beat you when you make those kinds of mistakes. So it is frustrating still, but the Eagles did enough with their very good pieces to go and get that win.
Exactly.
And that's ultimately what you have to take away from this one.
And honestly, because, Gino, the weaknesses have been the weaknesses all year. It hasn't really gone away. A reason they lost 3 games straight is because the elite parts of this team stopped being elite. The pass rush disappeared. Jalen Hurts had a rough 3-game stretch, one of the worst stretches of his career so far in the NFL, which is saying he's had a really good career in this league over the last 4 years. But yeah, they just stopped running the football well, and at least on Monday against the Giants, they got back to doing some of the things they do great. And again, it's still a work in progress. You need that pass rush to get back. You need the turnovers to be stopped. But if you can get those 2 things corrected and you can get your elite strengths back on track like you did on Monday, again, that's kind of the reality of this league right now. They're not a perfect team, but nobody is, and they're going to have a shot. Let's get more into this game, the positives and the negatives. 33-25, the final score on Christmas Day. The Eagles take it over the Giants. They are now 11-4. We'll get into that coming up next, right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. This episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, as the weather gets colder, the NFL offers Stay Hot on FanDuel. New customers get $150 back in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. So if you took the Eagles over the Giants on Monday, there you go. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. Of course, money line bets. The app is so easy. There's everything else to bet on as well when it comes to options like spreads, player props. Of course, we do that every Friday on LOE3, over-unders, all that and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. Once again, that's FanDuel.com/lockedon to kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. We thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Guys, want to let you know Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. 33-25, the final score. The Eagles finally get back in the win column after a 3-game losing streak. They're now 11-4, back in first place in the NFC East after the Dallas Cowboys lost. Good news for the Eagles as well in that 1-seed race. The Baltimore Ravens took down the San Francisco 49ers. So things are looking up. Gino, it wasn't a perfect game by any means, but a win is a win, and they desperately needed one. And again, there's still a lot to work on. They let the Giants back in this football game, even though they were down to their third-string quarterback, right? You're up, 20-3, and, it should not have been a one-score game where the Giants had the ball back and an opportunity to go win it, just like Drew Lock did the week before on Monday Night Football in Seattle. So, again, there's a lot to work on, but I do think the one thing I was really encouraged about was the offense getting back into some sort of rhythm because of the personnel, not because of Brian Johnson. They were very balanced, and you've been calling for that all year, right? Jalen Hurts surpasses 300 passing yards. DeAndre Swift, Kenneth Gainwell, 92 yards on the ground for Swift, 41 for Kenny G. I thought Jalen Hurts looked great on the ground too. They were just very balanced, and I think that's a key. If they can get back to being that kind of team, it's very hard to stop them, even in spite of the coaching.
The good thing about the run game is, though, that they at least tried something different. They ran out of the pistol a fair amount yesterday.
They haven't done that all year, I feel like, for the most part.
No, at all. That was the first time that we have really seen those looks. And the thing with lining up in the pistol is that you just get a different angle to attack the point of attack rather than those inside zone looks where you're off to the side. You have to step and kind of negotiate. It's boom, you're downhill when you get that. And it helped open up
right? If you're going to trust somebody to adjust to be him.
You have to give him some credit, but it's still very basic where it's just inside zone and duo. Like there's nothing else other than inside zone and duo. They don't run power. They don't run counter. There's not much creativity to it. And if those don't work, like yesterday actually worked, you've seen the result over the last 3 weeks. But they got back to it And you are getting closer to what they did in the fourth quarter, where they're averaging close to 6 yards per carry to close out that game. And that's what led them to a bunch of those wins in 2022, when they were just able to pop 6-7 yards off at the end of the game because their offensive line is just mowing guys down. And those pistol looks, it helped them get downhill quicker. Kenny G and DeAndre Swift were doing pretty well yesterday. Jalen Hurts looked refreshed. And then it opens up a little bit of play action. Their play action game still is very blah, and some of the fakes that they give at the mesh point are just it's like
so
just
vanilla.
It's like backyard football, like
bad.
quick fakes so they don't even have to read it, and then they just get the ball out quickly. But at least they tried something different. On offense, the one thing I want to say is, let's just run a million slants with our two guys in the middle of the field. Just run leverage routes and see where we go from there. That's how they scored, man. The one ball over the middle of the field is a touchdown, yet they continue to do these low percentage throws outside of the numbers that rely on just a bunch of things kind of breaking down. But the good thing is, Lou, that if Jalen Hurts looks healthy running the ball like he did yesterday, can make some of those magic man type plays where the ball snapped over his head, he collects it, turns around with his back to the defense, finds Grant Calcaterra, who picks up a first down, or on 3rd and 20, keeps his eyes downfield, steps up in the pocket in a big time situation and delivers a gem to A.J. Brown. Even though there is a lack of a system and identity, if they try these little quirks like adding pistol to it, running simple in-breaking routes in the middle of the field, those things hopefully will slap them in the face when they're watching film, that it's like, maybe we should do more of this.
The ground game definitely did bounce back, though. They averaged a season-high 6.3 yards per carry, 2.77 yards after contact, which was their fourth best average this season. You saw them close out that game, in the fourth quarter with the run game. They have not been able to really do that over the last few months, is put the game on ice with the run game like they have in the past. So I thought that was huge. And, again, you mentioned like Jalen looked as healthy as he's been in a long time, it felt like. When it comes to scrambling, his pocket movement was amazing. I mean, that you already mentioned the play on the show, the 3rd and 20 where he climbs the ladder. And you have to have that kind of play. A layer throw over the Giants linebacker in between the safety and the corner. A.J. Brown's on the sideline, a perfect throw. I mean, the way he hit Calcaterra, those two scrambles on the left side, I thought Jalen looked really good. And if it was for the first time in a long time, it felt like the defense was actually being impacted by his threat to run, even when he wasn't running the football. And that's something that made them so dangerous last year, and that's kind of been a missing element this year.
Now, was he 100% perfect? Absolutely not.
No.
We saw the pick six. I think everybody saw it. Attribute that to what you will. If it's just the very basic, we're just running 4 comebacks and the defense saw it coming, or Dallas Goedert slipping that throw, not being on time. But for things to not snowball is where this Eagles team in 2023 has been able to turn it around. And that's why that 3-game stretch was so weird. And that's why Jalen Hurts making multiple mistakes was so odd. But he's done that example that he put on display yesterday many times in games in 2022 where he makes one mistake, but he makes up for it 4 times over.
The elite plays come back. That's what happened the last 3 games is the mistakes were there, but you weren't seeing him make the game-changing plays that got them to 10-1. And at least he did that on Monday.
It's like the turnovers almost feel like they're Clark Kent-esque, where it's like it's one step backwards, but the elite plays are like Superman, where it's like 4 or 5 steps forward. Where I mean, that 3rd and 20 play, he doesn't make that, Lou. Where are you? Are you down after New York gets the ball and they can go down the field and drive and score? And then how many possessions do you get after that? Because that's in the 4th quarter. So to see him step up, to see the playmakers step up, was it perfect? No. Was it a step in the right direction? Absolutely. Get back on track. 33 points will win you many football games. The mistakes are still self-inflicted. If it was just like the San Fran game where it was you got the brakes breed off you, nothing was going to help you that day, it's understandable. Against the Dallas game, it took the chaos scenario. Seattle, self-inflicted wounds once again, but then when things do go right, you see what happens yesterday. And what happens if they don't turn that ball over? Could this be a 20-point blowout like we wanted to see?
It felt like that's what it was leading to.
Felt like it was on the way there, yeah.
I think some other positives, too. Britton Covey was great in the return game, Gino. Multiple huge returns. Yeah, setting them up with half fields. If you can do that, give this offense any more chance, any opportunities to score that you can, because the red zone offense is still struggling. Had to settle for field goals yesterday, but if Britton Covey can set that up for you, it's going to give you another shot. And then on defense, you look at the youth is really kind of rejuvenating the second and third level. And again, they're not perfect. They're going to give up yardage. Again, this is not going to be the lockdown 2022 Eagles secondary, but you look at Eli Ricks, Keely Ringo, Sidney Brown. I mean, those guys are flying around the football right now and making plays. And it reminds me a lot of 2018 when they had no choice but to finally play Rasul Douglas, Avonte Maddox, Crayvon LeBlanc, because Darby was hurt, Mills was hurt, Sidney Jones was injured. Like, they had to go to those guys. And I think it kind of revived the secondary a little bit that year in their playoff run. And I think that's kind of happening right now. Like, Gino, you mentioned it before the show. When Darius Slay comes back, when Avonte Maddox comes back, I don't know if I want to take Ringo and Ricks off the field and let Bradbury still be a liability out there.
Simply because the better teams are going to continue to pick him apart. And he was better than he was in the last couple games yesterday. Sure. It was 3 for 5 with around 64 yards allowed, according to PFF. And that's better than what he was the week before.
Comparatively, sure, yeah.
Comparatively, but I'm with you, man. Keely Ringo looks fast and athletic, and he's willing to hit, which was one of the downfalls of him. And even
Sidney
Ben
Brown
Van
only wants to hit.
Yeah, that's the only. He wants to just take everybody's head off. And Ben Van Sumeren look like a somebody who's capable of playing linebacker. And why do you let Christian Ellis just get claimed? Because if Ben Van Sumeren can see the field like that and not run himself into traffic, like there's a reason. And Shaq Leonard even looked like he could be a
7
rotational
tackles,
piece for you down the road.
Team, had a sack. Yeah, that's the thing, Gino's like, again, the second and third level, the personnel is what it is. Even if you have this youth movement where Sidney Brown's out there, Eli Ricks, Keely Ringo, like they're going to make mistakes. Of course they are. They're, first and second year players out there, a lot of them. So, that's going to happen. But at least you have an opportunity for them to also be playmakers. At least you have speed out there, right? And some sort of game changers. And if you can get that pass rush right, I just think that's a better recipe than this stale, complacent, like, let's just stick with Bradbury and, Bradley Roby inside. Like, no, at least give these young kids chances to make plays, because it's not like Bradbury's being mistake-free. Like, a lot of times you might play a veteran with a higher floor, even though he doesn't have the speed or the, the interception prowess of a younger player. But if they play mistake-free, that's okay. But that's not the case with the Eagles' veteran defensive backs at corner anyway. So might as well play the kids.
And if they're going to make plays on the ball and big plays for you like Keely Ringo did down the stretch, you're going to need that. You mentioned it. You're getting killed in the turnover battle. If your front isn't going to get there and create some havoc on the football, it's going to come down to the guys on the back end and who's going to give you the best opportunity. Maybe it's a young guy who can actually stay in phase, and it looks like Keely Ringo has kind of figured something out over the last couple weeks, and they might have a legitimate steal in Eli Ricks. And Avonte Maddox, I thought it was going to be a liability that he didn't play in this game, and then all of a sudden you're saying, oh, wow, we get him back healthy
That's
too down the stretch. And
you did not have.
Darius Slay said his knee was at 30%, Lou. What if he comes back and he's just way faster than he was before? I mean, they might have the secondary down the stretch that they've been dying for with some fresh legs too. I mean, they don't have gas on or tread on the tires, rather.
Right, and I love that Patricia's using very DB-heavy packages, on defense. Like, I think you were talking about it on Twitter. I mean, they were running a lot of dime, nickel, big nickel, dime, penny. I mean, you would see a lot of – that's the good thing is you didn't see that a lot with Sean Desai or Jonathan Gannon last year. Linebackers were on the field a lot. You didn't see 3 safety looks, and now you're getting that. And I think it's made the defense look a lot better the last 2 games. And again, of course, take it with a grain of salt. You're playing backup quarterbacks, but it's a step in the right direction at least.
It makes sense that at least you're trying something different, and something different is working. And it's funny that we said that on offense, like, oh, what worked? The pistol looks, the throws over the middle of the field, getting Dallas Goedert the ball in space. It didn't work. Screen passes to the outside that just continue to go nowhere. What doesn't work on defense? Well, just throwing multiple linebackers out there playing these base looks. Let's try 4 cornerback looks. Let's throw some 3-4 safety looks out there and just play more defensive back heavy to help out our secondary that hasn't looked nearly what it has been in the last year and a half, which has won you games at times. But this year, if it hasn't, it's been broke, and they finally are trying something different. And it seems that it's at least a little bit of duct tape over the crack.
I agree. Just get this pass rush right. I mean, that's the key, though, Gino, because,
to,
again, there's positives with the second and third level of the defense right now, reasons to be encouraged, but they're not going anywhere without that pass rush. They have to carry that unit, and they're not doing it right now, so they need their stars up front to bounce back, because that's where Howie Roseman has put his investments when it comes to resources, like money, draft picks, so there is no excuses. The talent is there. We'll wrap up Locked On Eagles coming up next. 33-25, the final score. The Eagles take it over the Giants. What are the Eagles' chances for the 1 seed now after that win? We'll get into that coming up next.
Today's edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. That is gametime.co or the Game Time app. And what is Game Time? Well, if you want to get some tickets, like to that game yesterday on Christmas, or potentially some home playoff games for this Philadelphia Eagles team, which is back in second place, you're going to download the Game Time app, and it is the easiest and most convenient way to get your tickets. You can go through, see exactly what the seat is going to show you, and you don't even have to click into the ticket. It's all there while you are scrolling. It is the most convenient way to get tickets. You can do it in literally under 60 seconds, up to and even after the game starts. So all you have to do is download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL. And you're going to get $20 off your first purchase. It doesn't have to just be on sports. You could go see your favorite comedian, Shane Gillis, a Philly guy. Of course, you want to go see him. You could go to the theater. My wife loves to see a show every now and then. And we always get our tickets over at Game Time, and you can too. Once again, download Game Time, use the code LOCKEDONNFL, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
33-25, the final score. The Eagles get back in the win column on Christmas Day. 11-4, the Eagles back in first place in the NFC East. The Dallas Cowboys lost to the Miami Dolphins on Sunday. And the San Francisco 49ers, they looked vulnerable. Again, just like they did earlier in the year, they took a big loss to the Baltimore Ravens. Brock Purdy throws 3 interceptions. I mean, that was the team that looked the most unbeatable in the league. And again, that's just the reality of the NFL right now is everybody has looked beatable this year. Every contender you think is going to start running away, they just don't. It didn't look like the Eagles had a shot at the 1 seed after those 3 losses. It really felt like they blew that opportunity. But now they are 11-4, just like San Francisco. So here is how they could get the 1 seed in the NFC. So they would have to win out. They're going to have to beat Jonathan Gannon and the Arizona Cardinals at home next week. Then they have to go to MetLife and beat the Giants again. If that happens, what they need is San Fran to lose one of their last 2. They're on the road against Washington next week, and then they play the Rams at home. And then they also need the Cowboys to beat Detroit. Honestly, that's not ideal. They don't control their own destiny anymore, but that doesn't sound all that unrealistic, Gino. That sounds pretty realistic. If the Rams beat the Niners, would you be surprised? They're on fire right now, and the Cowboys beating the Lions doesn't sound crazy, and the Eagles have the easiest remaining schedule, so I could see it happening.
I mean, and San Fran plays Washington, and we know what trouble Washington can give any team on any given Sunday.
Yeah, they can throw the football.
Sam Howell's like the ultimate wild card that when he's bad, but when he's good, it's like, oh, this guy can actually maybe play in this league. So fingers crossed that our division opponent could help us out in that way. But I think the Rams are going to give them a legitimate game that final week of the season.
And their playoffs might be on the line.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Their season could literally be at stake in that game. So they might be playing for it all. And the Eagles, we complained about the gauntlet and you got through it. And we knew that there was a light at the end of the tunnel. This is it. You, to a degree, control your own destiny, because if one of these teams loses, they didn't control theirs and you did. But it starts with you handling business like you did against the New York Giants. You were getting that food delivered to your table in beating the Giants or beating San Fran and having this ability to get a steadier lead. And you tripped over your own feet, threw the table all over the place, and dinner was ruined. Christmas dinner, you at least got to eat the food and you took a step in the right direction. It seemed like on the offense, we know that if this pass offense is clicking, they can stand with anybody. On defense, they're starting to have a semblance that can at least keep you in games and not lose you football games. But it all starts with handling their own business. If they don't fumble the football, if they continue to just make poor, untimely penalties, and they do the same things that we have seen they're going to lose 3 straight games and they won't have a chance to get into the playoffs and host a home playoff game. But if they do what they did yesterday and they continue to clean it up, who's to say that this team can't get hot at the right time when in a season there isn't one great team? Every team has quite literally been beaten multiple times. Lou, give me this team on any given Sunday with a hot quarterback, a hot offense, and a defense that can get healthy towards the end of the season. Yep. This Eagles team, they just have to win when it matters, and right now is when it matters. And it started with that Giants game. You got back on track. Was it ugly? Yes. Was it a division game? Yes. But they got it. That's all that you were hoping for against Seattle, so we'll take it this time around. And I liked what I saw in a lot of different areas yesterday, to be honest with you. Some people are still going to be upset about it, and you can complain about it all you want, but there was a step in the right direction, in my opinion.
No, I agree with you. And again, the 1 seed still, they need the Niners to lose one of those games. They need the Cowboys to beat the Lions. Like, you need some things to go your way. You got to win out. You can't slip up in your final 2 games against the Cardinals and Giants, but there's a chance. And, I think they're destined right now to win the division. I can't imagine they don't win these final 2. And at least if you're not going to get the 1 seed, if you want to get home playoff games, right? You don't want to have to be the 5 seed and the road to the Super Bowl to Vegas. You have to be on the road every single game. The Eagles have a good track record on the road under Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts, but it's very hard to go into the Link in January and win a playoff game if you're an opposing team. So that's home field advantage for the Eagles is bigger than most teams. And yeah, especially in a year, like you said, where it's just so unpredictable. Honestly, this year gives me a lot of, I'm not saying the same thing's going to happen, but 2017 was kind of this way where after Carson Wentz got hurt, you're like, who is the unbeatable team in this league? And you look at the Final Four as Case Keenum, Blake Bortles, Nick Foles, and Tom Brady. And
yeah, it feels like that, right?
It feels kind of like that chaos. I don't know if since that year we've had such an unpredictable roller coaster of an NFL season. Like, there's always been parity, but this year is on drugs right now. I mean, it's unbelievable.
I mean, look at the quarterbacks in the race for the NFC and the AFC right now.
In the MVP race, like, you thought Purdy suddenly was going to become a favorite. He throws 3 picks yesterday. I mean, you can't predict anything right now.
No, and that's why the NFL is the way it is, and that's why you just have to take every week as it comes. Every week is a season. I heard that quote last week, Lou, that in media, every week is a season. That's quite literally what has felt like for this Philadelphia Eagles team, and it rests in the balance. You're 0-0 this week. You got to go 1-0 the next 2 weeks. That's what it comes down to. As long as this team doesn't shoot themselves in the foot, I'll put them against anybody. I think we've kind of been on that wavelength that even if the expectation isn't to get to the Super Bowl, if they play the way that they have at times, their best against another team's best, who's to say?
Yeah. 33-25, the final score. The Eagles take it over the Giants. Gino and I will have a stock up, stock down tomorrow. We've got crossover Thursday with the guys over at Locked On Cardinals as we take a look at that matchup against Jonathan Gannon. A lot more for you coming your way on the Locked On Podcast Network this week. Thanks so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. For Gino Camilleri, I'm Lou DiBiase signing off. As always, thank you for downloading. Thank you for watching and listening. And let's go, Birds.
Fly, Eagles, fly.